I'm going to talk a little bit about, sort of set the agenda for today. Microsoft, by the way, has done tremendous work in zero-knowledge proofs in our research group. We're doing some work bringing that into the products teams now. We've had sort of a journey of lots of different things, including with Consensus in 2016, launching a Visual Studio development kit for Solidity. And we've had a blockchain service running in Azure in the early days of, why enterprise blockchain. And hopefully we won't ever go back there again. I think, but we're in this exciting moment at the intersection of AI and decentralization and privacy controls at the edge. And so agents and particularly agentic workflows really push on that. So really exciting time also to bring back something old that's now new again. So I'm going to talk about that just to set the context here, and there's going to be way more details on the stuff that I'm going to talk about in the presentation. By the way, this is my Claude-built version of PowerPoint, so I'm not using PowerPoint, just to be clear. And I built this because I wanted the space dust and the little space guy. So, and you can do that yourself in 5 minutes, just to be clear. That's the world we live in. We've changed the entire resource development requirements for doing anything you want to do. And as I tell my students who are here in the room, grad students at NYU, Center for Global Affairs, you have all of the answers at your fingertips, just ask. If you don't know how to do something, just ask, right? That's the world we live in now. And you can basically build anything you want. And so in the Silicon Valley meme, the idea guy is now on top. You guys know that meme? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so what's old is new again. Why do I say that? This idea of payment required on the web that we've unlocked with this new technology that we're going to talk about today has been around for 3 decades. This presentation really talks about sort of the evolution of how we got to where we are. When I was describing X402 to Mike Pell, who's my partner in crime in the back of the room, who runs the garage here, I basically told him about micropayments, and he said to me, "You mean like we had been talking about in Xerox PARC 3 decades ago?" And I was like, "Yes, that's it, you got it. We're finally unlocking that 3 decades later." Thanks to the crypto community, which is also awesome. So this is the reference to Xerox PARC. Thank you, Mike. And if you look at the quote here from some of the original imaginers of the web, maybe we can get the lights down. Can you do that, Mike? Or, oh, okay. Second down. Okay. Thank you. Now we can see my space dust. Okay. So Xerox PARC, you can see that the machine paid for you, right? This was a protocol built into the web stack, even before the web really became consumer available. So if people remember the 90s, anyone here from the 90s? I mean, not born in the 90s, I mean actually worked in the 90s? Okay, a few of us who actually worked in the 90s. I did, and actually I was at Microsoft from 1992 to 2000, so I lived through the web and the dot-com boom and bust at Microsoft. In 1992, nobody understood at all what the web was. Literally nobody. It was kind of like Ethereum in 2014. It was like this, a bunch of nerds kicking tires, right? In 1993, approximately, Bill Gates famously said the web is a fad. In 1995, credit to Bill Gates, pivot, and we put TCP/IP into the Windows operating system and shipped Windows 95 with the first consumer-grade TCP/IP stack. Now every consumer, whether they cared or not, was basically on the web. And obviously you still had to pay for things like AOL. Any AOL users still? Anyone paying for AOL email? At $20 a month? Okay, thank you. Good. Yeah. Okay, so always envisioned to be there. This is actually the payment required protocol. It's called HTTP 402, hence where X402 comes from. It was never shipped, never lit up. What the great team at Coinbase and Cloudflare and others have done is basically worked on this to get it to the point where we can do real-time in-session payments securely using stablecoins and other forms of money. You like how I put that? Stablecoins and other forms of money. Come on, it's a crypto crowd. Okay, so three years later, we're still using Venmo to pay each other for lunch or coffee. Basically, micropayments didn't take off. Why? Anybody from the financial industry here? Okay. What company? Okay. Stripe. Okay. Well, I might pick on Stripe. So actually, Stripe is part of the X402 Foundation. So they're doing great work, leaning into the to the disruption, which is awesome. Which is what I tell all my banking partners. You guys got to lean in. Like, stop fighting it. It's happened. Get there. Right. Start building a new business around it. Anyway, so the reason micropayments don't work today, and we have to use tools like Venmo, which are centralized providers, SaaS providers, right? And SaaS is dead, by the way, because of Claude, just to be clear. So be careful. Centralized SaaS providers, therefore, are probably dead. That's where the world is going. We have the tools to now make that possible, right? And that's what we're going to be exploring today. But why doesn't it work? It doesn't work because credit card payments are brittle. Right? There's high fees. You cannot do 1 cent payments if your floor of payments, sorry, Stripe, is 30 cents, right? And you add 2.5% on top of that, right? And in the crypto space, we've demonstrated how you do very, very inexpensive financial payments or transfers, whether you're buying crazy things like an ICO or you're buying other crazy things like an NFT or any of the other crazy things we can think up in the crypto space that you might want to buy for a couple of cents. Just kidding. Basically, it just doesn't work, right? It's really a brittle system with lots of intermediaries and lots of fees that just don't allow a 1/10 of a cent to work, right? So this was the idea 30 years ago. It just never actually came to fruition. So we're there now, and we have great partners like Stripe leaning into that. And as I mentioned, basically, X402 came from this idea that you have a protocol which gives you a response, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of great details about this today. But it's basically an open source spec. It sits in a Linux foundation. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Stripe, and others are participating in the open source work. It's phenomenal. I mean, what we can imagine today, this goes back to my point about SaaS providers being dead. What's the business model of a SaaS provider? Anyone? Subscriptions. Why do we have subscriptions? Because micropayments don't work, right? So reimagine everything you thought about the internet and think about on-demand payments that are cents or microcents. That is where the web is, right? And that's where we're going with agents. And that's really what interestingly, the crypto community is really pushing in and helping demonstrate to the rest of the world what's possible. So OpenClaw is your personal assistant. How many people are using OpenClaw? Okay, hopefully you're not putting your credentials in there. We'll come back to OpenClaw later in the presentation, but essentially it's your personal assistant. Side data point, back to Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, who I worked under in the 90s. He had this idea in the 90s. He actually did a whole ideation video on the personal assistant. And it obviously was not really possible until where we are today, which is also interesting. And Mike, do you have a reference on that? Oh. Okay, so, yeah. Oh, Knowledge Navigator from Apple. Okay, that's a good reference. Thank you, Mike. So we're gonna come back to OpenClaw, but amazing tooling, highly risky. Don't recommend you put it on your production computer. A personalized assistant for everyone, which is what we just talked about. But OpenClaw basically will, take control of all of your SaaS credentials and log in for you and do all the things you don't ever want to do yourself. And that's basically what it does. Okay, so we've had some moments recently with the Pope talking about AI. And actually, this is a great quote, which is why. So has anyone read the Magnificat Humanitas? All 42,000? Okay. Okay, so a huge document that the Pope published, and I very much appreciate Pope Leo. So I just wanted to reference this document. And what he said here is actually really how I believe technology should work. It should demonstrate value to humans, and we should use technology to stop the bad things that are happening in the world, right? And this is, by the way, what I study with my students at NYU. So, Anthropic was actually at the unveiling of that. And one of the co-founders, Chris Olah, had an interesting quote as well. And I've heard this before, which is a model is a mirror, right? Because human beings are really informing the model, and human data is informing the model, or the data of the web, which is mostly human generated today. So I just included those here. Okay, so what does this all mean? We're basically, the web is massively changing, right? All of the assumptions of the last 30 years about subscription models and centralization, and the web being built for abusive business models. Anyone in the advertising space? Okay, sorry. I spent a couple years in the advertising space. It is an abusive business model, just like subscriptions are, right? Like, here's how I describe subscriptions. My students will tell you this. We ask you to pay $20 a month so you can use something one time to do some research, and then we don't let you out of that subscription for 3 months because you can't figure out how to get out. We're asking you, as a SaaS provider, to pay to be abused, just to be clear. That's the SaaS model. Okay, so we're going to get out of that with real-time on-demand payments. The web, I think the data points are somewhere in the next I think it's probably 2 years, but I always use the range 2 to 5. Within the next 2 to 5 years, the web will be dominated by agents and agentic workloads. You can see this in every transformation, including electronic trading, electronic advertising. It's basically completely fundamentally shifted those, and now it's available to all of us, right, through the democratization of this technology. So it is going to change. That means that the web and the reasons we search on the web and who's searching on the web changes, right? And so this is also very disruptive to Google and Bing and other search businesses, and you can see the reactions and the pivots that even Google's doing in the context of its search business, for example. Is anyone from Google here? Bummer. Okay. This is a couple summary slides, and then I'll be done, I promise, guys. Where's Parvina? Is she here? Okay. So back to where I started, we basically have this new capability. We're going to learn tons about this today. Microsoft, this is me, by the way. As I mentioned before, co-founded blockchain at Microsoft. I run a traceability program in forced labor compliance at Microsoft. They were also productizing for all brands that now have the same compliance requirements. You might have seen a tariff get flown up in an executive order today, specifically about forced labor. So every supply chain very likely has forced labor in it, just to be clear. And if you want to talk about that separately, happy to talk about that separately. I'm a founding board member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which Redwan just spoke about, and still a board member. And then I teach at NYU, and my students from the Ethical Tech Lab are here in the room as well. Okay, so aside from this, a couple of interesting things. Microsoft had a very eventful week this week. We have a conference called Microsoft Build. Announced at Microsoft Build was some very interesting stuff, all sort of the future of technology, which includes things like, actually Microsoft didn't make any Fusion announcements, but like those are happening weekly. And we do have some investments and partnerships in fusion energy. But the first three, OpenClaw, quantum breakthroughs, and more efficient models that run on decentralized edge compute was actually announced this week. So Microsoft has a small team that's been working with OpenClaw over the past couple of months and has developed an OpenClaw that I can now run on my work machine. So we have about 70,000 people who signed up for the internal pilot at Microsoft, Microsoft employees who are running OpenClaw now, and this version that you can now download yourselves. So remember I said don't run OpenClaw. This is the OpenClaw you can run. We've taken the open source framework and we've put it through all of the security principles that we have to have on our desktops from a software perspective because we're working inside the beast, so to speak. And so this is a version that's absolutely safe to use, and it's in alpha. So really exciting announcement, actually, from my point of view. This is actually going to unlock a lot of internal workloads that I haven't been able to unlock before. Sorry. Okay, so I think that's it. Microsoft also announced, just go back here. If you see it today, we announced updates on something called Majorana. That's our quantum chip. Last week in this office, actually, there was a quantum development kit session, the QDK, which is a development kit for Q#, which is a language I think we announced around 4 or 5 years ago. Seeing quantum coming, we actually created essentially a simulated environment using Q#. And some people, I think, have looked at Q#. Kevin, yes, Kevin Lufu of Coinbase, and also co-founder of X402. We also announced 7 new AI models. 2 data points for you. We are very focused on efficiency, so some of these models are 10x more efficient than their counterparts in the market, like, for example, Opus 4.6 with similar capabilities. These are edge-capable models. So these will run, they're essentially small language models. They have the same capability practically as Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.5. Okay, so very powerful models that are now in a small footprint that would work really well in decentralized compute, which is obviously of interest to this community. So that, I think, is a really exciting breakthrough as well. So if you want to talk about any of those things, just go search for Microsoft Build announcements, and you will find the URLs for that. And that's my talk.